Hey, hey, beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of the No BS. That sounded really weird. The No BS Human Design Podcast. If you are watching here on YouTube, you get to see my brand new birthday tattoo. If you're not, sorry. I mean, you can go to the YouTube and see my brand new birthday tattoo that my parents are most definitely going to hate. And my authentic self coming out more and more over the past few years really gives no fucks. So, you're going to see a lot of changes in me and my business the more that I blossom and bloom. And with changes means that sometimes you outgrow people and people outgrow you. And there's so much that comes with that. But I want you to know that if you are in a season of change, much like I am, I mean, my line six ass has been in a season of change since like the day I was born, really. But if that's you, and if that hits hard for you, I just want you to know that I very much am and have gone through the same things. Everyone on a personal and spiritual development journey goes through these relationship changes, friendships evolving, you becoming your new version of yourself and unapologetically so. And that was just a message that I feel like I had to share today. So if you needed to hear that, please listen again, write it down if you need to. We all go through it and I'm here. You can always shoot me a message if you need to talk. Anyway, sorry, I sound a little sick. I've spent the last week, literally my birthday week, I spent sick most of it, which was rough, but I'm on the tail end now. I just probably sound a little weird. So, what we have going on in the back end before we dive into today's episode, you've been hearing me talk about the upcoming rebrand of Human Design Society for some time now. And I'm so, I don't even know like what ecstatic, like passionate. I'm so passionate about what this is turning into because the more that I really honed in on what this new community is going to be, and I've talked to so many people about it, they're like, "Whoa, I would join that in a heartbeat." They're like, "There's nothing else like this out there." And that's how I know for sure that like I am fully channeling exactly what it is that I needed to be providing for you here. So, if you're already a member of Human Design Society, you get grandfathered in at the new price should you wish to stay with all the changes coming up, which probably end of this summer, I'm thinking, is when it will be unveiled, quote unquote. And if you want to hop in now and be a founding member when it does officially rebrand and launch, hell yeah, let's do it. I mean, the price has gone up. It is now $27 a month instead of 22, but still, it's less than $1 a day. So, I mean, we all get our Starbucks coffees for like $17 now, right? I'm just kidding. I don't really drink Starbucks that much. But anyway, I wanted to keep it super affordable because this is something that I don't believe should be out of reach for people. I feel like what I'm bringing to the table, I want to be so damn accessible for anyone and everyone in need. And so if you've been to any of my monthly new moon circles, the co-create, then you're already starting to get a vibe for what this community is going to be. And if you like co-create, then I'm telling you, you will absolutely freaking love the newer version of the community coming. And as a founding member, you get to help me really shape it and mold it. And I mean, hell, just to say that you've been with me since day one, that's pretty cool too, right? And we all fall for those. Like, hey, I'm a founding member. I knew that person way back when, right? If you think I'm that cool. Anyway, okay, jumping into today's episode, we have on the wonderful Jess Bubbico, who just has like the best name to say. Say it out loud right now. Jess Bubbico. So much fun. I love it. She's a 4/6 emotional manifester. She is a vessel of love, right angle cross of the vessel of love, if you're familiar with your incarnation cross. And she is another human design and Gene Keys guide. She actually works alongside my human design mentor. And that's how I knew her before I even had her on the podcast. And she was a former pediatric speech pathologist. And now she can officially say that she is an author. And her children's book is called Jessie Lou and the Magic of You, available now on Amazon. You'll find the link in the show notes. And it is a beautifully illustrated, human design inspired storybook to help caregivers and children learn how to accept and lovingly work through big emotions, whether defined or undefined. So, we talk a lot about why this is important, when I found out that she wrote a book, for kids, especially for kids, I naturally wanted to talk to her about it because I am someone who very much identifies as breaking the generational patterns within my family of having emotions, having big, strong, healthy emotions, and that being safe. And that's something that my husband and I very actively teach our kids every single day about their emotions and that it's safe to feel. And so I wanted to have Jess on to talk about these generational patterns that a lot of us are still living in and we don't know it, especially around emotions and the emotional wave. Whether you are defined or undefined, we are both defined in the solar plexus and the emotional center, but it doesn't matter either way. You still are a human with emotions. And today, the day that this episode is airing is the day of the 1 year anniversary of her book. So, because of that, I wanted to do a little giveaway for her book, Jessie Lou and the Magic of You. Submit a rating and a review of the podcast, screenshot it because it doesn't alert me. So, screenshot it, email it to me at adriana@adrianakeefe.com. And I'm going to enter you to win the book. And I think she said it also came with like a coloring book too. So, she mentioned something that I came with. So I'm going to send both of them to one beautiful winner, and the drawing will be on June 3rd. So just send a screenshot of that to me at my email, adriana@adrianakeefe.com, and I will let you know who the winner is on June 3rd. All right. If you have kids, this is definitely going to be one you want to take a listen to and probably get the book. Let's be honest, it's probably amazing. I haven't read it yet. I meant to get one and read it by now, but sickness and life. So go grab the book and enjoy this episode. Welcome to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm Adriana Keefe, human design coach and motivational speaker. Oh, Jess Bubbico. First of all, your name is so freaking fun to say. And I'm sitting here like, I know you because I've been watching you in my mentor's human design community for so long. And this is actually the first time I get to talk to you. And so I'm really excited to actually learn who you are outside of that. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to start off by saying what your human design is. And I'm sure you know your astrology top 3. I'd love to kick those off too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here with you and to have this conversation today. I am a 4/6 emotional manifestor, right angle cross of the vessel of love. I was born right on the spring equinox. And my sun is in Aries. My moon is in Libra. I was born on the full moon. And then my rising is Aquarius.
Ooh, that's a fun rising. I like that. My
Yeah.
design sun is an Aquarius, which made so much sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who are you outside of what I know from human design? You are so much more than that. You have done so much. You have so much to give. So who is Jess?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I'm like, who is Jess? Who is Jess Bubbico? Um, and I agree. I'm like very grateful that when I was on the other side, wherever from, I was like, Bubbico, that's the last name. That's for me. Because I also agree. It's very fun. And I can't
is.
take credit for it. Except maybe I picked it before I jumped to Earth. Anyways, so that's a really great question. I think like right now at this iteration of my life, you and I are both the same age, so we're both up on the roof. And I think that, I would say for anybody who is a human design enthusiast and is really like going deep on human design, I always thought that I was going to turn 30 and I was just going to like almost like Mary Poppins reverse style. I was just going to shoot up on the roof and I was going to, take my umbrella and I was going to get lifted up there. And what I've actually found is this last 5 years has been this process of what we call with the 6th line going up on the roof. And so I think I finally feel like I'm up there able to reflect on the first 30 years of my life saying, I did a lot. The first 30 years of my life were characterized by a lot. I went to graduate school to be a speech therapist, left that career, went into like metaphysics, deep into metaphysics, learned about, and we'll talk about my book today too, but like it's actually caked a little bit into the book, my learnings from that. I have done so many things. I've been a fitness instructor. I've studied nutrition. I feel like to answer who I am is to share the story of a lot of what I've experienced and what I've done. And I think the wisdom I have gained, but I think right now I'm in that sort of integration process of integrating the first 30 years of bumping into things and learning a lot and getting a lot of scrapes and bruises and just discovering what it means to be a person living here on this planet at this point in time.
Yeah. And everything you're saying, I'm just like, well, she's a manifester, so this makes so much sense. Like
Yeah.
if you had to put a label on it, I'm like, you're a manifester. I can see it through and through.
Hmm.
Total aside question, but did you resist that when you first learned about being a manifester?
Yeah, it's funny. I think I actually really grasped onto it in the beginning because I was like, this makes sense. Of course, I think this happens, first of all, with a lot of people with human design in general, but a lot of the manifestors I've met. Like, at first, I was like, I'm not going to work with this thing. Like, this is cool, but I'm not going to work with it. And then I had clients that would come to me. So I was teaching intuitive development at the time and be easy to see where someone was going for me. I'd be like, well, this is the path, but they didn't have the tools they needed to actually
Mm.
understand and embody that path. So I think for me, I was like, I'm going to give this weird triangle-y square number thing a go and start working with it with people. So I have resisted a lot of aspects of or a lot of aspects of what it means to be a manifester because I haven't always resonated with them. I'm like, I love people. I love hanging out with people. I have a Libra moon. I'm a vessel of love. Like, I don't resonate with this whole repelling and no one gets you. I've always had a lot of really close friends, but that's where I think it's important to understand for anyone, you're so much more than your type. And there's so much more that goes into your energy from a human design standpoint, but also just a life journey standpoint. We can look at this beautiful map we've been given to reflect back to us who we are, but it's at the end of the day, we are a soul that's come into this body to live a life and have had ancestors before us and family members and imprints from conditioning. So it's such a powerful tool and it's not all that we are.
Jesus, I feel like we could end the episode
Yeah.
right now. That was beautiful. Very well said. I 1000% agree. All right. So I recently learned that you already wrote the book. Yeah, you wrote a book all about, I mean, I'm probably going to totally botch this, but the emotional wave that we can feel as a child and basically the tools that you wish you had, I wish I had when I was young and that my parents had with me. I definitely resonate with that. I was always told I'm too much, I'm too emotional, I'm being a drama queen, stop crying. And, the people before us did the best that they could with the tools that they had. And I've since learned that my sisters and I are all emotional gens, and my parents are both projectors. And so that, right? I know. Like if
Mhm.
you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Jess go, wow, that's a lot. It's a lot. So when I learned about you writing this book, I was like, first of all, yes, I'm here for that. I love that. Getting it for my kids. And also, I'm dying to know the story behind that because when we talk about breaking the cycles of lack and emotional intelligence. That's generational patterns that we are now breaking ourselves from. And what we often don't realize is we're now breaking the cycle for every generation underneath us. Every little child I have and their spawn, everyone, this is all breaking because we are choosing to be more aware. So I'd love to hear about, I guess, your childhood. Like, where did this come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, absolutely. I resonate with so much of what you just said. And I think about the fact often that like you and I are 89 babies. And I think about the fact that like the transmission that is human design came to the earth, what, 2, 3 years before we were born. Like we were kind of like initiated into this, like if that's where the consciousness of the planet was. Like it's we, and that's I think why I think we resonate with it so much. And you think about if your parents or my parents or our grandparents had had the tools to be able to say like, oh my gosh, they're emotional authority and we aren't. So now we can understand and we can create a common language around energy. How profound that would have been, and how profound it is that we now have access to this and we can teach other people. and we can advocate for ourselves. And we can also, at the same time, have compassion for our family members who didn't have access to those tools. So, Jessi Lou and the Magic of You is the name of my book. If you're watching on YouTube, here she is. Oh, there we
There it
go.
is.
It's a little blurry because I have my background blurred, but I wrote this book illustrated by Danny Summerfield out in the UK. She's incredible. The pictures I think are really beautiful and very fun. Um, and let me think about where to start with this. 2020, I was just going through a hard time. I think it was right before, right after the pandemic started. And I went to lunch. I live in Florida, so everything shut down a little later here than the rest of the world. And I went to lunch one day and I was just trying to process what happened. And this like book came out in the notes section of my phone. I was like, I'm just going to write a story. And I wrote this story. And it's interesting you talk about intergenerational trauma because I actually put my grandmother Nellie in the book as my guardian angel. And I have another grandmother who was named Giovanna. We actually called them Grandma. Nellie was Grandma Pool because she had a pool, and Giovanna was Grandma Roni's because she was Italian and she always was cooking macaroni. So I put them in the book, and it, basically as a kid, and as I was actually going through this book with somebody else the other day, I was like, oh my God, this is so written by Emotional Manifestor, because the book starts out that Jessi Lou is like afraid of getting laughed at by her friends, and she has big emotions, and basically she goes into her room to cry and process her emotions and feel, and this guardian angel Nellie shows up and is like, you know, she's teaching her to love and accept her emotions. And she teaches her, it makes me emotional whenever I talk about the book
I'm
too.
gonna cry. I'm totally gonna
Yeah.
cry.
And she just she this is my favorite line. I'm gonna cry when I read it, but she says, as she meets her, she says, I'm here to remind you that you're a special child, even on the days when your emotions feel wild. And so the book goes through how to move through emotions. We're both like
See, here we
little
go.
emotional selves. We're both crying. Um, but I think that just goes to show how much we have this conditioning around emotions, be too much, not feeling them, pushing them down, judging yourself. And so the book really goes through like, number one, accept your emotions, love them because they're there for a reason. Number two is here's how you can work with them. Like if you're feeling something, don't ignore it. There's a cute picture. Again, I take no credit for the pictures. I gave some creative direction, but Danny did a really amazing job, like of her bottling up all the emotions, and you can see them inside of a jar. And it's like, don't do that. Let them out. Dance, move. And and then it goes through a step-by-step process for parents and kids to, number one, talk about and identify emotions. So my classically trained speech therapist self came out and was like, okay, we need a process to like help parents when this comes up, because it's nice to have the fluffy feelings of like love and accept and feel, but what do we actually do when we meet our child when they're feeling something, or our own inner child when we're feeling something? Because it can set us in a panic, like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling something. Oh, I'm upset. Oh, I'm feeling emotions on this podcast. I'm feeling whatever. And it's like, how do we meet it in the moment? Breathe, feel, identify. The dog in the book is named Gus, and we have a Gus emotion chart. So it's like, identify what you're feeling, like point to it, feel it in your body. And then again, like something that parents can reference when their child's going through a big emotion or when they're going through a big emotion for themselves. So to wrap this back up to what you asked, which was, what was my childhood like? I would say it was very emotionally up and down, but I don't think that's changed throughout my adulthood either. I think, yeah, that's where I'll end that. It's just about learning to love and move with it and embrace it.
It's so interesting now that I'm thinking, well, what I got emotional as you said that because my middle daughter, my 4-year-old, she's my Cancer. She's very sensitive, very highly emotional. She actually has an open solar plexus, so she's like opposite of every other one of us. But she is I fully understand that the universe gave her to me, not first, because my emotional manifestor 9-year-old actually didn't have a wave like super big that I had to learn how to manage until she became like 7 or 8. And then it started to really show. But I don't think that I was ready when I had my oldest to be able to give the right emotional intelligence to her. So I definitely see the universe giving me my 4-year-old me as a child,
Yeah.
and me being able, see, now I'm gonna cry. Me being able to give her what I'm now aware I didn't receive as a child, that really shut me down for so much of my life. And I just wasn't ready for that when I had my 9-year-old. It had to be Reagan. It had to be my 4-year-old. And I'm curious, there's probably people listening who associate the emotional wave with a defined solar plexus. So can you touch a little bit on the emotions in general and open versus defined?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was on another podcast yesterday, and I was saying to the woman, if you look at the book, there's a little redheaded girl that's in the book, and it's my sister who's emotionally undefined. And I joked, I was like, I should write Lindsay Lou as the next book, because they called my sister Lindsay Lou as a kid. And I was like, be interesting to get into the mind of what it was like for her to be around an emotional mom and an emotional sister. Um, so here's like kind of how I see it, and take from this what resonates for you and leave what doesn't. I really see that the emotional wave having to do with how we make two things. Number one, how we make decisions. So I think we have to understand that one of the functions of the wave is that it's here to help us make our decisions and feel through the decisions that are right for us. And oftentimes that emotional wave is going to help you to land on the right decision in the right timing. It also, I love what Jenna Zoe says. She's like, if God is a DJ, he's just playing music through you all of the time. And sometimes that music is melancholic. Sometimes that music is really happy. And I think the thing that's important to think about is like when I get into my car, if we're a radio receiver of music, the universe is always playing emotional music through us. Like I don't go into the car and there's a sad song on and I'm like, I hate this song and it's bad, I'm never going to listen to it ever again. Maybe if I was like in Footloose and that was, but like this is like, it just is. It's just mechanical. It's just a part of you, is that you get to have that sort of romantic dance with emotions always playing through us. And I actually gave a recommendation again on another show the other day of like, if you have an emotional child, or you yourself are emotional, you can use music as a tool to be like, have a shared experience. Like, hey, you're feeling sad. If you're feeling sad, like what song really makes you connect? Do you have a song that it feels like in your body today? And we can dance to it and move to it and talk about it. So that way we can start to associate emotions in a positive way, as opposed to like in them being wrong and being like, shut off the radio station. Like you really can't. And you can try to force yourself to tune into another radio station and another song. But that might just not be what's playing through you today. Um, and so it's the way I see it is, if we're going with the radio station example, like there's radio waves going out into the world, like into the air and the ether all of the time. And to me, that's what the emotional wave is. Like you're receiving it, but you're also transmitting it into the world around you. And I think as someone that we would call, quote, non-emotional and undefined center, I don't think that anyone is uh, uh, doesn't have emotions. I think when we have people who don't have emotions, we call those people oftentimes like sociopaths. Like there's something clinically
Yeah, that non-emotional
going
word is really
on.
misleading.
Yeah, and I think that I would almost like I would almost want to recharacterize it. And I'll probably think about it after the show and have something else I would want to call it. But like there's almost an emotional sensitivity and an emotional attunement with somebody who has an open center, especially if we think of it as you're receiving you're the ear that's receiving the music, right? The person with the emotional energy maybe is the one transmitting it. but the one who has the open center is the ear that's receiving it and feeling it and experiencing it in real time. And I think there's a quote by this woman, I think it's her name is Jill Bolt Taylor. And it's we think of ourselves as thinking beings that feel, but we are feeling beings that think.
Mm.
And so I think we're all sentient, whether we're emotionally sensitive to other people and have that ability to emotionally attune, whether we are kind of always emotionally moving through something and moving through something in our body, whether it's coming directly from inside of us or it's something that we might be experiencing in the world around us or the people around us. I often find that many people with an open emotional center, oftentimes when they're just by themselves, it's not that they're not feeling something, it's that they're feeling this innate ability to tap into emotional neutrality, which is a gift. My best friend, she's going to be coming and visiting me here later today. She's down in Miami and I'm in Fort Lauderdale. And she was like, her partner has emotional authority and he has a big emotional wave, and it's the 3740. It ratchets up and ratchets up and ratchets up, and then it boom. And I told her, I'm like, it's so interesting to watch how I see you feeling his emotions. Like I see you in this beautiful neutrality a lot of the time, but I see you feeling it and I don't feel it. Like, because I'm emotional too. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like it's not getting into, I have the 3740. It's not getting in the same way that she's experiencing it. So I think that if we, just to wrap this up, shift the language from, it's not about not being emotional. Everyone has emotions. It's just about, I think, that sort of baseline of, are you kind of in that neutrality or in that peace within yourself? And maybe not everyone feels that, but from conditioning and things like that, and receiving from the environment around you, or is it just kind of something's playing through you today? You're just dancing to the music through life.
And that all of it is okay. I feel
Yeah.
like I just keep finding myself getting emotional because, like, just even 2 years ago, I was still on anxiety medication, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I chose to not need it anymore. But all those years of my life, I prided myself on being numb, essentially. Like, I don't cry. I never cry over anything. Nothing affects me. And then now I've learned, like, my sensitivity is this is such a superpower. And I just wish I had understood that as a kid. And I can't help but think, like, what would my life and my relationships have looked like had I embraced emotions? Had I been aware that this is a gift to be able to feel in life. And the fact that there's people like you writing books for our kids and teaching the awareness to parents out there. I don't know that if they haven't gone through this themselves, I don't know that they truly understand the impact that they're making on their children's lives. Can you speak to that a little bit?
If they haven't gone through the feeling of experiencing emotions.
Yeah, I guess just the impact you see it could have made on you as a child
Mm,
and what you see for other kids out there to just have this awareness and begin to practice with these tools.
yeah. I think that this question is like so loaded in a lot of ways, because one of the things I've been working with is my own cycles as a woman, like my own like menstrual cycle,
Yep.
and starting to work with like cycle syncing, which just basically is about understanding that like we go through, whereas like the work week is set up on a 24-hour cycle. And then we kind of like, we're supposed to crash at the end of the day and wake up again and do it all over again. As in a body with ovaries, you're going to go through a 28-day cycle where your energy is going to wax and wane. It's basically the 24-hour cycle stretched out into 28 days. And I think a lot of what I've had to come to terms with for myself is that my emotions change in a big way over that 28-day cycle.
Mhm.
First half, I'm like, let's freaking go. I'm starting a new program. I'm doing all the things. And then the second half, they dip. And I think a lot of, the programming collectively is like what you said, like your emotions are too much, your emotions are too big, your emotions are too much, this and that. And so, like you, I pushed my emotions down because I was like, I'm not going to be like one of those crazy women with all
Mm,
those emotions. And I ended up with tons of anxiety. You know, the way that I see it, this is my personal experience. So, take again, I'm not pushing this on anyone, but like I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, which has a lot, like you have an overabundance of male hormones in your
mhm.
body. And so I wanted to operate more like a man. I wanted to be more tough. I wanted to be all these things. So I think that had I had this tool back in the day to say, you're not designed to work in the same way energetically. And as a manifester too, like you're not designed to work the same way. Don't try to do it all in 24 hours. Give yourself time to feel through and experience what you need to and create, because it's a creative cycle. The male creative cycle, 24 hours, female body, it's 28 days. And I think if somebody had explained that to me and said, it's okay, your emotions are going to change and you're going to shift and change over time and all of that, I think it wouldn't have taken me 35 years to get to the point of acceptance of that
Yeah.
and to actually utilize it. It's to me, it's the same thing as like we were all born with, especially with emotional authority, but you may resonate with the cycles as well if you don't have emotional authority. It's like we were born with a spoon and with in our hand, and everybody was like, well, nope, that's you need like make it function like a steak knife. It's like this thing's never going to be a steak knife, but if you told me to use it like a spoon, then I could use it like a spoon instead of going, oh my gosh, it doesn't cut, it's not sharp, it doesn't cut through a steak, this and that. Um, so I think I would have been a lot easier on myself. And I also think I would have been easier on other people too, other people in my life, not expecting, even working with women like clients or people who had emotional authority before I knew about this tool, like give them time. They need to feel through it. Or, oh yeah, they can make a decision from their gut, encourage that. So I think the way I would answer that is acceptance. I think there would have been a lot more acceptance of self. And I think I would have been a little bit more generous to other people in my life as well.
That acceptance piece, that I can feel that to my bones because even now I'm 34 and still trying to accept myself. So imagine if I were taught these tools as a kid and then I wouldn't get to this point where I'm struggling so deeply to accept a lot of things about myself. I mean, actually I'm a lot better than I was even just last year. But when my 4-year-old will have a lot of big emotions, I guess we'll say. If we ever try and talk to her, ask her what she needs or whatever, she makes me so proud in the moments that she goes, I just want to cry right now because
Oh.
we've given her that space to
Mm-hmm.
feel. I didn't know I was going to cry this
I
much, Jess.
know.
Jesus. But we've given her that space. And I'll see, one of the elders from our family say, like, don't cry. That makes me sad. And I'll have to be like, you can't attach her emotions to how it makes you feel. This is
Yeah.
her body. This is her experience. And allowing her to feel so deeply, that's just such a gift you can give to a child. And
Yes.
just allowing them to go through their own process of, whew, I let that out. I feel so much better. Like imagine the the rates of dis-ease going so much lower because they're not holding all of that energy in their body. It goes so
Totally.
much deeper than just letting my 4-year-old cry. Like we're not letting her have a quote tantrum just because we don't want to do anything. Like this is her process. This is her releasing. This is so important at a mental, physical, spiritual level. I grew up with a lot of aches and pains and chronic issues. And now I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And at the end of the day, when we give ourselves space to process, it moves pretty quickly. I just had a conversation with a friend this morning because she went through some big stuff last year and she kind of went into survival mode and was like, okay, like I have to take care of this. And she didn't have she didn't give herself the space to feel through the emotions at the time. She's also emotional authority. And, but just in general, all humans, like she didn't give herself time to process the feelings because she needed to get through it. And now a year later, she's got like pain in certain areas of her body. And she's like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to it, you know, and I'm going to feel it and I'm going to let it go and I'm going to release it. But I think the thing, like you just shared about your daughter, sometimes even for ourselves, we go, well, I don't want to feel it. It feels too big. And at the end of the day, it's only big for a very short period of time. You know, it's not, I think we think if we let ourselves feel the bigness of the feeling, then it's going to take us out. But it's like, no, actually, it's going to take you in and it's going to bring you to a new depth inside of yourself that you didn't even know was there. And you're going to discover something about yourself that's important, you know? And sometimes things have layers. Like I've been coming up upon some stuff that happened with the inception of this book, like what kind of brought the book into being. And there's still layers there. And when I let myself just process, like, okay, this is coming up right now because it's just another layer and it's helping me to become closer to myself and make sense of things that have happened in my life. I'm like, oh, there's so much clarity on the other side. It's all here to help me grow as opposed to something to be afraid of.
And I unfortunately feel like the mainstream manifestation stuff has really moved us away from letting yourself feel the feelings, which is a whole nother conversation in and of itself.
Yes.
But it really, I mean, if you don't embody every aspect of you, you are not calling in everything that you want and are worthy of in life. Like that is it. You are designed to have emotions. This is a physical space that we're in with a physical body. And actually, speaking of, you had in our emails, there was a mention of creating the mind body connection at an early age.
Mhm.
And now that we have all of these resources, I feel like our kids are just going to be so gifted in being able to bring to them things that they truly want and desire in life. But I'd love for you to speak on what you see in that mind body connection and how that's relevant to the emotions.
Yeah. I have started, maybe this is the sixth line in me, but I've really started, I was deep in like the mainstream manifestation culture back like,
Same.
gosh, 2018, 2017. It was very fun. Like it was very
Yeah.
fun. I'd be like, I'm going to see a green balloon today. And then like I would, and I loved that.
Yeah.
Um, but I've really started, I had, I'm going to speak to that and then I'm going to go into mind body connection because what I found was I manifested a lot of what I quote wanted and then it fell apart or it was challenging or like all these other things came as a result of kind of achieving the dream of what I wanted. It was right around my Saturn return, so like everything burned down anyways, um,
Naturally.
naturally. And I think what I learned, and in reflecting on that as I've grown past that time, is like everything is here to evolve you. Like everything is here for your evolution, everything is here for your growth. If you watch nature, nature is always growing and evolving, and then it's dying and going back to the ground and rebirthing itself. And I think that in the mainstream culture of like, make sure your emotions are high and positive all the time, like I genuinely don't think that's the point either. I think that again, everything is here to help us evolve and help us to grow and help us to come more into ourselves. I think that the mind body connection and teaching kids this somatic awareness at a young age is really helpful because it's easy. So, like when I say mind body connection, it's this ability to be able to um, come back into the body and come into what you're feeling and developing awareness around it, as well as understanding how the mind affects the body, right? And I think the more we actually bring awareness to our emotions and to what we feel, and we stop necessarily looking outside and going like, you made me feel this way, like it's your fault that I feel this way, and we actually go in and we can go like, oh, I'm feeling sadness, and okay, well, why, right? And we don't always have to analyze why, but maybe we had a fight with somebody or a discussion like, oh, I'm feeling deep anxiety. Okay, well, what's happening in my mind? It's like, oh, I'm feeling anxiety because I don't want to have this conversation with this person and I'm afraid that if I'm vulnerable, they're going to get mad at me or they're going to whatever. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it just makes us stronger and be in, I want to say, controlling our own energy, and not by means of needing to control ourselves or to control other people. But it's like we take back our sovereignty and we take back our power because we start to recognize when we can make that connection between the body, mind, and emotions, we can actually own our own story and we can own our own experience. Um, like your daughter being like, I'm sad and I'm going to cry because that's what I need to do in this moment. Okay, cool. Less disease, less emotions getting caught in our body, less it's your fault you made me feel this way, more of that ownership of like, it's okay to cry. At the end of the day, I love and accept me.
Oh. Oh, I just love that so much. There's this other book that we have that teaches like affirmations. And as we read it to our kids, we ask that they repeat it. And so there's all these like little like 2.5-year-old and 4-year-old voices being like, I am so grateful. I love me. And I'm just like,
Well, I
it's
actually
beautiful.
made a Jessie Lou and the Magic of You coloring affirmation book as
Oh my God.
well, with affirmations that are like, I actually don't have a copy of it here with me now, but it's like, I love my big emotions. It's safe to feel my feelings, all that kind of
That is
stuff too. So
amazing. That's available for purchase?
yeah, on Amazon. So Jessie Lou and the Magic of You is the book, and then the coloring book. Oh my gosh, I'm like, what is it called? I think it's Jessie Lou and the Magic of You coloring book.
Okay. We will definitely link it in the show notes either way, but I'm just going to drop this here. Whoever wants to rate and review the podcast, I'm going to put you in for a drawing to send the coloring book and the book to one lucky winner. So, writing that
Oh,
down right now because that is amazing.
thank
And
you.
I know that any parent listening right now is going to be like, I need that. I mean, I'm obviously getting it from my kids anyway, but all right. So, if you rate and review the podcast, send me a screenshot and then I'm going to enter you into win the coloring book and the book for your kiddo or for yourself if
You.
you just want to color. Sure. That's
Perfect.
amazing. So
Thank
someone
you.
listening is probably like, this all sounds great, but how do I actually take this in practical steps on the day to day? What could you give them? A couple tools or practical ways that they can do this with their kids or with themselves just today?
Well, at the back of the book, there's tools for that. There is
You thought of
literally
everything.
a 5-step process for working through big emotions as well as identifying emotions. But in all seriousness, and again, like this book is a little bit long, in that I put information in like literally around like, I mean, there's a whole page on how to integrate this into your life. Like if you want to start talking to your kids about emotions, and to be honest, I feel like this book, a lot of people will say like, I feel like this book is about me, like adults. I'm like, I know, because it's about me too.
Thank
Um,
you.
but I tell people like, you can with your kids and with yourself, like what is a great time to pause and check in with yourself? When you're brushing your teeth, when you're on the toilet, when you're in the shower. You can take the Gus emotion chart, take a picture of it, put it in your home and be like, what am I feeling this morning? Because oftentimes we're like, I don't have time to feel that. I need to get the kids in the car. I need to get my coffee. And it really, this
Yep.
can all take less than 1 minute. And so if we can go like, oh, I'm actually feeling really anxious right now, and I can take 5 deep breaths, which is going to take me all of about 30 seconds, and I feel it in my gut. I'm like, okay, I feel it. I'm breathing. Um, I'm feeling anxious because I don't want to have this conversation with my boss. And that is okay. I'm gonna move through this anyways. Then you're not gonna yell at your kids, or you're not gonna be
That's
snippy
it. I
with your
was just going
husband.
to say that's the
Yeah.
difference between me snapping at my kids and me being like, oh, this is my shit right now that I need to deal with.
Yeah.
That I was just going to say that. Yep.
Exactly. And I think, again, that's where it comes back to what we were just talking about, that responsibility piece with yourself. It's like being able to own your feelings and own your emotions. You start to show up in the world differently. So here's what I'm going to give as a practical tip for everyone. If you have the book, great. If you're like, I don't really want to buy that book, also great. Not going to pressure you to do it. Create a little emotions chart for yourself and slap it up in the bathroom, put it on the mirror. And every day before you go to work or before you go to bed, just check in with yourself. And you could do this with your kids. Like take 5 deep breaths, center into your body and go, okay, what am I feeling? Okay, feeling uncomfortable. Okay, I'm feeling it in my chest. Okay, I'm just going to breathe on it, take 5 or 10 deep breaths and see what comes out of it. And then see what I mean, your emotions are trying to tell you something. So I can't tell you what your emotions are trying to tell you. But if you check in with them, they're going to tell you something. So
Hmm.
instead of pushing them away, shutting them down, closing them into a jar inside of yourself, feel it, experience it, connect with it, and see what it's trying to tell you. Not by going, what are you telling me? It's just breathe, listen inward, and see how that shifts your day.
A thousand
And you
percent.
could check in like with your husband and your kids or wife or whomever, partner, like I'm feeling this. What are you feeling? And then we start to normalize the conversation around emotions.
Hmm.
And again, if you're like, I don't have time for that, this will be decrease scrolling on Instagram by 1 minute a day and do this instead.
Because most people could have that minute to spare. Yes.
Yeah,
And
totally.
just having that awareness around like my own, especially with anxiety. For me, it's usually anxiety, feeling like tightness in my chest or something. Now that I know these things, yes, it helps me parent, but also like my husband is obviously my safe person. So he'll be the first person that I take it out on. So if I'm feeling it, I'll just be like, hey, just a heads up. Today I'm feeling really anxious or whatever. And, don't ask me big questions. And I'm sorry if I snap, but this is just like the setting that I'm in sitting in today. And just
Yeah.
him knowing that, him knowing anything about human design has been really helpful because he has an completely open solar plexus. And he used to always try and fix whatever he felt was wrong with me. And now he's just like, oh, this is just your shit. Okay. We're just riding
Yeah.
this wave. And it's so much easier. But me knowing and like having that awareness to just stop and be like, okay, I'm feeling something right now. What is this? Communicating that. And I'll even communicate it to my kids too. My husband's been
Yeah.
traveling a lot for work. So, especially with my 9-year-old, but also my 4-year-old understands. I'll say, I'm just feeling like there's a lot that I'm trying to do right now, guys, and I just need to take a few deep breaths. And they get it now. They get it.
Amazing.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
by no means a perfect mom, but
No, but
it helps a lot.
it helps to put language to a shared experience that we all have, whether we're feeling it from somebody else or feeling it ourselves. And I think it's important. Can I give two quick little other
Yeah.
things that people can use, especially with kids? Oh my gosh,
Ooh, we did
look at that,
balloons.
balloons. Thanks, Zoom. Okay, so just a quick thing. If you're like, my kid's not really a visual kid, but they're very tangible and tactile, and you want to start incorporating feelings, you could create a little jar. And this is actually, we have it, Jessie Lou's feeling jar in the book, if you can see it.
Oh, yes.
You can actually collect a jar and have them put little items and objects in it. And then in the morning or again before bed, they can pick a tangible item. Maybe they put like a snail shell from outside and like a purple or pink leaf or something, whatever. Maybe they find like a cool colored leaf or a piece of string or a little matchbox car. You can have them pull it out and go like, this is my sadness. Like this one represents sadness and this is what I'm feeling today. Okay, why? And then you can also or how can I support you? You can talk about that as well, like you pointed out. You don't always have to have a why with it. You can just be like, cool, what do we want to do with that today? I want to sit and cry. I want to move. I want to color, whatever. And then you can also, like I said before, with the music, I think that's a really fun shared experience for parents and kids, is like a little dance party before bed. Oh, I'm feeling this feeling and this song goes with it. And we can dance it out and move and have fun with it. And how
Basically,
would we
Taylor Swift's
move?
new album, Anything Depressing.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it, but I have heard yes.
Yes, that's all my 9-year-old listens to now. That is amazing. Thank you so much for all of this that you've shared. Is there anything else that's on your heart that you feel like you need to speak on?
I don't think so. I'm just grateful to be here with you and have this conversation. So thank you for having me on. And for everybody out there who is emotional or non-emotional, raising an emotional kid or a non-emotional kid, you're doing a great job. We
Hmm,
just have to keep growing and moving through, and there is no such thing as perfect. So
amen to that.
keep
Where can
growing.
people connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Jess Bubbico, and you can also find me on my website, www.jessbubbico.com. I have a lot of classes around the gene keys and human design and things like that. have something coming up for the single people very soon because I am single. And so as a manifestor, I'm always coming up with new stuff. So I always tell people, oh, and I have a podcast called Waking Up with Jess. Yeah, I'm like a little unpredictable at times. So who knows what I'll come out with next? Just keep up with me in those places.
I love that all so much. And I am just now realizing I had asked the universe for support with my 9-year-old daughter because she's a defined heart emotional manifestor and I am clashing with her. And I have not been able to figure out exactly how to navigate things with her. And I'm just realizing you're saying you wrote this book from the standpoint of an emotional manifestor. And you say with defined heart too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So this is literally what I've been asking the universe for. That's
Yeah.
so funny.
And
See,
if you
ask and you shall receive.
10 out of 10 recommend Holly Marie's book, Informed. For anybody out there, I'm going to give her a little plug.
Nice. Okay.
Love her book, Informed. It's all about manifestors. And I think she has a
Ooh,
chapter on raising manifestors potentially. So,
nice.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
here.
Mhm.